2 years is how long we've been waiting for the sequel of this Pokemon fan game. I'm of course talking about Pokemon Flux, which has gotten an update a couple of weeks ago. I already made a video on it back when it released, but that was only episode 1, which was only about 1/3 of the game. And now they've just dropped episode 2. If you're not familiar with Pokemon Flux already, it's made by some of the same devs that worked on Pokemon Uranium, like Oripoke, who might be some of the most talented people in the entire community. You probably forgot what happened in the first episode, so I highly recommend to go and check out my first video on it, but I'm also going to try and give some recaps where it is needed so you can follow along with the rest of the story. The new features of Pokemon Flux are very broad, with an entire new mechanic called Flux Moves that combines status moves with damaging attacks. You've got an entire new Dex filled with Pokemon that you love from Pokemon Uranium, as well as a lot of new ones. These will also roam free across the region in the overworld, so you can encounter them while you're exploring. Gyms are also not in the game anymore because there is an entire different league structure and game progression that is different from your standard Pokemon games. There is also a very interesting cast of characters with their own backstories, goals, and ambitions that you're going to want to get into, and that's only scratching the surface of what Pokemon Flux is really like. You'll be seeing a lot more of it in this video, but before we get into that, let's have a quick recap of what happened last time. The Altera region is powered by something called Flux Energy. Unfortunately, this energy can sometimes have a bad effect on Pokemon, making them enraged so they start threatening some parts of the region. You can recognize these Pokemon by their aggressiveness and red glow, and the proper name for them is Alter Pokemon. And so the main character Zwiggo and his two best friends Terra and Aster started their own Pokemon journeys to try and become champion of the region. On our very first day, when we didn't have our Pokemon yet, we ran into some Alter Pokemon and ended up being saved by the champion Alistair, who gave each and every one of us our starting Pokemon, Selkit, Lunapup, and Minion. Once we got out of that night fully unscathed, we met up with the professor of this region, Dr. Reed, who ended up giving us our second starter Pokemon, Chiclet, who evolved into Burnichus along our journey. We also met up with the league director, Aquila, in the Pokemon League headquarters, where champion Alistair stepped down because of his own personal reasons, which put the region in danger with the rising attacks of Alter Pokemon and nobody being able to defend us anymore. Luckily, Aquila saw some potential in us and sent us out on many missions to save the region on countless occasions, like the time we fought a huge regional form of Wishiwashi that looked like a squid, and the other time where we saved an entire town from a rampaging Pokemon called a Negawatt in their power plant, which was cutting off all of their power supply. After this, we could take on the Rooktown Pokemon League Arena, where we needed to get 4 stars by defeating 4 other participants, and then won the challenge against the reigning leader Nula, which allowed us to claim the first of our 3 league symbols. After that, we got called back to Altair Corp, which are the guys that are running the Pokemon League, and here we get introduced to the other 2 CEOs, Andromeda and Antares. They decided to sponsor all 3 of us, and they also had a plan to stop the Alter Pokemon forever, which could save the region. This project was called Excalibur, and they didn't want to release any information about it to us. Despite all of this, we still agreed to their offer, and they send us on a special mission that we're going to embark on right here, right now in Pokemon Flux Part 2. And the first thing we did in our following adventure was of course check out the team we had last time. We really had some awesome Pokemon in there like Garbagol, Carmillari, and many others, and I even forgot that we managed to capture a shiny Spalato last time. There's also a couple of new features in the online tab where you can now battle other trainers, use the GTS to find and trade Pokemon you want across the world, and even wonder trade with your fellow Flux enthusiasts. We also received a couple of messages on our X-Holo. The first one was from Altera News that now states that the area northwest of Altera is now open for business again because the severe weather conditions have been removed. This is also what blocked us off from going further in the last episode. We also ended up receiving a holo message from Aster, who's gotten involved with some odd folks in Condor City, so we need to go and see what's up so we can try to help him out. Once we arrive, we see that he's working with a film crew on a new movie, and his starter Pokemon Villicard is one of the main stars, combined with Garlickid. But they've been running into a lot of issues on the set, with some kind of pest biting through a lot of their cables and breaking some of their equipment, and if they don't manage to fix it quick, the lead actor is going to leave the show. So he needs me, a strong trainer, to protect them while they're filming so something like that doesn't happen again. So the next day we go and film in Warbler Park, and this time we see the little troublemaker in action as he ruins yet another scene. The entire crew tries to run after him, but he manages to escape, and the lead actor for Garlickid decides to quit until that pest is captured. But we're cooking cooking up a perfect plan to do just that. I'm going to be playing the lead actor for the next shot. And once I change into my Garlic Kid outfit, I start fighting Villicard. That's when Minion shows his face again, and we get a chance to capture it. We then find out that this minion just wanted to help out his older sibling Villicard because that's what they normally do. So once everything has been explained to the little guy, he promises not to mess with the set anymore and decides to stay by our side, which means the movie can now finish filming without any more issues. We do unfortunately have to give the Garlic Kid suit back, so he can't be running around like a superhero anymore, but that's at least Aster's side quest done. But he wasn't the only one that needed help. My other friend Terra also left me a holo message. She wants me to come over to Go-Go Ranch in Rook Town. Once we arrive, she explains that there is a big problem here at the farm. A lot of the Go-Goats here have been getting sick and battered throughout the night, which means there must be a dangerous Pokemon lurking around that is hurting these creatures. And the head farmer here has had enough. She doesn't want her Go-Goat to be hurt anymore, so she's hired us to try and see what the problem is. So me and Terra go on a stakeout mission throughout the night until all of a sudden a little Luna pup shows up. It starts interacting with some of the farm animals, but before we can even see what happens, Terra decides to throw out her Hero Loon and scare it off, thinking that we've gotten rid of the problem. But that was not the case, because the next morning all of those Go-Goat and Skidoo were sick again. The farmer gets mad at us for making it even worse, but we promise her that we're going to fix this the following night. So we do the same thing, go on a stakeout and see what happens. This time the Luna pup shows up again, only now we decide to let things play out. Now it seems to be teaming up with one of the Go-Goats because a very large threat is approaching the farm. And that's when we see it approaching across the hills. An Alter Carmillari who's the root to all of these problems. The Luna pup has just been trying to protect the entire herd, but we know that it's not strong enough, and once they lose the battle, we step in to try and save the day, which didn't end up being an easy task. But because we teamed up with Terra, it became possible. We started out with our Girabolta and Dirtworm, and I immediately burned it with some Scorching Sands. This made the rest of the fight quite easy, as I could just bring in my starter Fu, who'd use 2 more of his flamethrowers to burn it to a crisp. From there on out, Carmillari was never seen again and the herd was safe. Luna pup also witnessed our heroic actions and decided to join our team too. Anyway, with that final side quest out of the way, we do get to start the next part of the story now. And we do that by entering the new Badlands Desert. That's where we get a call from Andromeda, who wants me to come to the Western Flux Nexus so she can explain the next part of her plan. But first, we need to head north to Shrike Outpost before we can even get there. So I start making my way through the desert and immediately get surprised by a shiny, sparkling Pokemon in my bottom left corner. It turned out to be the regional form of Nidorino, Nidorime, and I didn't really have a choice here. I had to capture it without a shadow of a doubt. I also defeated a ton of Alter Pokemon here, and every time you do so, you get some nice juicy loot. I also ended up capturing a couple more Pokemon, like this regional form of Ekans that's now a fighting type, but also the grass ground type Cactana. After this, our regional bird also evolved into its final form, Turbolibri, who just like a fighter jet will drop bombs on any opposing Pokemon. A little later, me and Terra reached the next outpost, and we came just in time because all the townspeople are being attacked by altered Pokemon. But just when we're about to take them on, 2 biker gangs show up and end up defeating the altered Pokemon together with me. But both of their leaders don't seem to like what we're doing here because they're the protectors of this here town. But they don't do this for free. They take a lot of supplies from the townspeople, which results in most of them living in poverty. And just like any other biker gang in Pokemon games, they seem to have beef with each other as well, as one of them is from the west of town and the other from the east. They're called the Rough Riders and the Blaze Bikers, but they managed to agree on one thing, and that's that we should stay out of their business. So once they demand all of the supplies and the village people have handed them over, they head back to their respective bases. But me and Terra really can't stand the sight of these bullies, so we want to go and investigate to see if we can put a stop to this so the townspeople can live in peace again. First thing I do is check around town until I find an Ice Stone. The first thing I do is use it on my Nidorime to evolve it into the ground ice type Nidorigis, and I already know that he'll surely be a great asset to the team. I also picked up a good rod which I used to fish up a toad in a pot, and then I headed west to see what the Blaze Bikers were up to. First thing I did was capture this footballing Scarablaze, which I love because I'm actually a very big football fan myself. Me and my friends even have our own futsal team, so seeing Alfonso here made me really happy. Further along the desert, we ran into Terra again, who says that the only way into the Blaze Biker hideout is by fighting through a ton of the members and barging in through the front door. So we team up again and fight fight each and every one of them. This eventually led us inside, where we ended up getting a call from Aster saying that the Blaze Bikers might not be as bad as they seem, and if we want to find out why, we need to take the elevator downstairs. But that wasn't without its risk, because on every single floor we stopped, a member would step into the elevator and we'd have to fight them. But all this battling ended up being a good thing, because my starter Fu evolved into his final form, Pyroterix. And if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know I'm a sucker for dinosaurs, and this amazing starter is no exception. I'm really glad I decided to pick him as my starter Pokemon in the end, because this might be my favorite Fakemon in the entire Flux universe. And if you've seen any designs that you've liked so far, leave it in the comments down below. I'd love to see what you think of the Pokemon in this game. Moving on, we eventually reach the end of our elevator ride, and once we step out, we see Aster standing next to Tephra. She says that we have no idea what we're up against and to take a look at the cliff in front of us. And our mouths fall open from the shock. Alter Pokemon are everywhere, destroying the environment. And if they were to get past the Blaze Bikers, the rest of the desert might be totally screwed. But they have managed to keep them at bay up until now. They're nothing like the Rough Rider scum on the other side of the canyon. They just take the resources of the town for themselves, but here they really need the resources to keep their gang alive. Otherwise, a catastrophe would be happening. She knows about our plan to go inside of the Flux Nexus and putting a stop to whatever this is causing, but she doesn't think we're strong enough, because inside of there's a Pokemon that's stronger than anything we would have ever seen. She's even ran into it a couple of times herself and can't put a scratch on it. And if we think we're strong enough to go up against something like that, we better prove it to her right here, right now in a Pokemon battle. So just like before, me and Terra team up with our Fu and Wormiterra against her Flintling and Armorrouter. I sent the Armadillo to an early grave with a flamethrower, and Terra swaps in her Hero Loom. The next turn, her Flintling and Tinkaton both died to a Drain Punch and Flamethrower combo. Her last Pokemon ended up being a Farablaze who could not survive a single dual wing beat, and that shows her that we are indeed strong enough to pass and maybe even get a chance at taking this thing down. So we go to the little base up ahead to discuss our next strategy. So we end up calling Andromeda to tell her that we have arrived at the Flux Nexus. She isn't able to send any backup right now, so we're going to have to rely on our own Pokemon. But she is going to meet us with her helicopter at the Flux Nexus entrance. So we devise a plan. We're going to split up into two groups, me alone and Terra together with Aster. They will take on the left side of the pipeline, while I go and take on the right side, because I'm the strongest trainer. So I should be able to handle this myself. Once most of these Alter Pokemon have been wiped out, we'll be able to reach the entrance. So we head out, and on our way, we update each other on our progress, while I'm able to defeat a Knucklestackle and some Flintlings. We then arrive at the scene together and unscathed, but just when we're about to enter the cave, we get surrounded by a ton of Alter Pokemon that seem to come out of nowhere. Just when we think this might be the end for us, Andromeda shows up in her helicopter and orders her team members to clean up the rest of the Pokemon to keep us safe. Turns out she was watching us from the skies the entire time, but when she realized we were actually in trouble, she jumped in. Once we thank her for saving us, she explains that a lot of the problems here in this part of the region originate from this cave. The sandstorms, extreme weather, and even the Alter Pokemon. Stopping it isn't going to be easy. We need to take down the Nexus Guardian, a very strong ancient fire-type Pokemon that acts as a vessel. That vessel contains a certain rare and powerful stone called a Flux Core, and once we defeat the Guardian, we'll be able to take it from him. Once we do this, the Alter attacks and strange weather will stop, and we'll be able to proceed with the next part of the Excalibur plan. But one of us needs to stay behind for this mission to work so they can guard the entrance. That's going to be Terra, which means me and Aster are going to go in. Andromeda also hands us the Flux move for strength, which means we can now move giant boulders, in case they become an obstacle along the way. So we head inside and go straight to the elevator just to find out that it's out of power. So we'll be trying to get as far as possible on foot. The deeper we head into the cave, the more strange carvings we start noticing among the walls. But I'm not able to read them, but for some weird reason, Aster can. So he's going to study these some longer while we head further into the cave. On the way, we battle more dangerous Alter Pokemon and even capture a Calmeteor, and in the end we find a generator that turns on the elevator again, as well as some lights. These then turn out to shed more light onto even more wall carvings, but the only thing he can make sense of is Guardians Forged contain the power. But the wall carvings are not the main reason that we're here, so we decide to leave them alone for now and head downstairs into the very dangerous lava parts of the Flux Nexus. Hero is able to capture the the fire slug Hagoop, and I found out that if you go into the lower parts of the cave, this red bar will appear above your character stating that you'll be too hot. First of all, thank you game, but secondly, you don't want to get too hot because otherwise if the bar fully fills up, you'll go unconscious and spawn back at the beginning. I also ended up capturing a flintling down here, and you can also not just walk through lava, so in order to get past the lava rivers, you need to go upstairs and drop boulders into holes so that they make a path through the lava. Once you complete the entire puzzle and get to the end, you link back up with Aster and get attacked by more altar Pokemon. Once we defeat the Obsignus and Boiling Toad together, we notice more wall carvings. Once he reads this one, he finally sees what this entire story is about. You see, the wall carvings were made by Draconians, ancient people that used to rule over the dragons of Altera, but they have all been wiped out for centuries. But they created a vessel to contain something called the Sacred Organ. This allowed them to control the vessel and use the power of the Sacred Organ to achieve all kinds of feats, but eventually fighting broke out over the vessel's control. Until one day, that fighting stopped and it was sealed away in here. Which means the flux core we're searching for is probably the Sacred Organ that the texts talk about. So let's go through this last lava path where we have to skip over rocks and do it way better than Aster because he ends up injuring himself from a fall he makes at the end. He's too injured to come with us, and we also don't want to risk his life, so we go on into this final chamber alone. Fires start glowing all around us, and that's when we stand face to face with the legendary Nexus Guardian. Its name is Rastomach, Hunger of the Mountain, and this lion can be as hungry as he wants. When you have a strong water type like Ariel on your side, he doesn't stand a chance. We end up using Brine and Scorching Sands, which immediately brings him to half HP. This causes him to go berserk, boosting all of his stats and controlling the domain. He really thinks he's Gojo, but his aura is screaming Jogo. Yes, he might one-shot both of my team members the next turn, but we still have backup, and all we need is 2 more strong hits with Drill Run to send the beast back into its slumber. Then we take out the Ruby Flux Core, which makes the vessel unable to move. We go back to Aster and tell him that everything ran smoothly, but the only thing he really cares about is seeing us alive, like a good friend. Then we head back outside to Terra, and yes indeed, the altar Pokemon have stopped attacking and the sandstorm is gone. She also makes sure that we have the Flux Core and that Aster's ankle is alright, but he says he's just going to walk it off and that it's not that serious. Andromeda then comes up to us and says that our hard work has paid off with all the altar Pokemon returning back to normal. We then hand over the Flux Core, which she's going to take back to HQ to study it so they can find the source of its alteration, which they can then hopefully use to purify all the altar Pokemon. But there's still 2 Flux Cores remaining, one in the northern and one in the eastern Flux Nexus. Each of these areas are experiencing similar phenomena, so just like here, we're going to be the squad to try and clean them up. After this, we can all go into town and head east, which was previously blocked off by a giant boulder that we can now move. This takes us to another part of the Badlands where we run into a very suspicious looking character. She warns me not to pass through here because this is the Rough Riders' turf, and they're not known to be gentle with kids like me, and their leader, Cardin, is a criminal with a bounty on his head. So she tells us to turn back now if we know what's good for us. However, when I tell her that I beat Tephra already, she seems flustered and doesn't even believe me. So now we have to put our money where our mouth is by beating this mysterious stranger in a Pokemon battle. This person starts off with an Insolitex and an Amperinkus, and I have to say that I love the design of this tiny little troublemaker, but that doesn't mean he's going to get off easy. First, we take out the left slot with a Brine and Scorching Sands. Next out is Carmelari, who makes quick work of Starkey, so I use a Brine to take him down the next turn when I send out J&D. I also use a Stone Axe to take out the little birdie, which also sets up Stealth Rocks for her final Pokemon Toxtricity to run into. And with 2 more attacks, it's finished already. That's when she takes off her hood and introduces herself as Mercy, and her little partner's name is Ampy. She says that she's had some trouble trying to break into their base because Cardin is the one she's after, but she can't even beat his low-life grunts. All because they use ground-type Pokemon and she specializes in electric types. That's where I come in. I need to get in there and wipe all of the grunts out so she can reach their leader without any issues. Considering he's a criminal, I go ahead with the plan and beat up as many grunts as I can. Once we get inside, she warns me not to just barge in because this place is filled with booby traps, and they're all hidden under the sand. If you end up falling into one of their pits, you'll have to battle some grunts or Pokemon that are hidden underneath it. Luckily, Ampy always knows the way, so all we have to do is follow in its footsteps to get through the sand unscathed. So we do that a couple of times until we reach the end of the hideout and confront Carden, who calls our friend here a bounty hunter, which is something she never even told me. But bounty hunter or not, this guy is real trouble because he traps her in a sand pit, leaving only me standing. He already knows we beat Tephra on her home turf. He isn't even surprised because she has apparently gone soft, and real people respect power and fear, which is something she didn't bring, but he does. And he's going to show that right here by picking me apart with his Pokemon until we're just bones in the desert sun. We're not going out without a fight though, so I send out Yelnats and Starkey, and just one of the icicle crashes we have immediately takes out Sagawana because it's 4 times super effective. The incoming Nidoking also just dies in one hit from Icicle Crash, but his Wormiterra steamrolled my little salamander. So I had to bring out Ariel, who combined with an Icicle Crash sang its songs to take out his very own Nidoriggus, which leaves an unarmed and not able to take us out anymore. Ampy then uses its electric powers to shock him down on the floor, knocking him out, and we can then pull Mercy out of the ground so she can get the money that's on his head. However, she also apologizes for not telling her intentions from the start. She just has a very hard time trusting people in her line of work, and she isn't fully doing it for the money alone. She also loves to bring criminals like him to justice. Now that we know her intentions were good, we head back outside and part ways with her until we reach Corvo City because that's where she actually lives. But it's going to be quite a while before we reach that place, so for now this is goodbye. So we head over a bridge and run into a familiar face. And if you don't remember, let's have a little recap. This is Gale, the top student at a Pokemon Academy that we won a tournament at. We also helped him out by saving one of his friends in Alba Woods from Alter Pokemon. His friend's name is Leo, and they are supposed to be traveling the region together, but before we can find out more about them, Gale wants a battle because he seems to dislike me quite a bit because we beat him back in that tournament. So let's show him how much we've improved. For whatever reason, he immediately swaps out both of his Pokemon for Trickweed and Minicorn. On the first turn, we don't really do any damage to them because Trickweed has an ability just like Mimikyu where it blocks the first attack it gets hit by. The following turns, all of my attacks connect and these two turn into dust. Next on out are Grimpaws and Tanscure, but little did I know that Tanscure was actually a Zorotsune with its illusion ability. While we were able to do decent damage on Grimpaws, both of my Pokemon ended up going down, so I had to bring in the flying duo Fu and Furby. Together they swept the rest of the battle like it was nothing, leaving Gale disappointed in himself yet again. Something seems off with him, so we ask him where Leo is. Turns out they had a big fight and now they don't want to travel together anymore. And if it's really Leo we're looking for, he should be in the ruins up ahead. Gale says that none of this matters to him, but we can hear in his voice that he cares about Leo a lot and would love to make it up with him. And I know these two are best friends, so I go to the ruins to see if I can help their situation. But when I try to enter, we get stopped by members of the Alteran History Society. They say that this cave is full of artifacts and that there were already 2 trainers fighting here earlier and they don't want something like that to happen again. And the only way they're going to let somebody through is if they prove their determination by vanquishing them in battle. They had a super weak team of Bronzor, Golett, Fixinit, and Adabiot who all got defeated in an instant, which meant we got to enter the ruins sooner rather than later. A little further in, we spot the red hair of Leo, who's looking at this weird symbol on the wall. He's super glad to see us, but he also seems very sad after his altercation with Gale, so we tell him that we already know about the fight. He doesn't really want to talk about it right now, however, but he is very interested in this symbol on the wall, but he doesn't know what it means until at one point his Pokeball starts shaking like crazy and his companion Ember pops out. It floats to the symbol on the wall and all of a sudden it starts glowing blue and opens up a special doorway. Without hesitation, we both enter because we're eagering for another adventure. But when we get into this next chamber, the door closes behind us, which means we're trapped. The only other thing in this room is a stone tablet puzzle, and because I definitely have the most brain cells out of the 2 of us, I take the completion of it on me. Once it's fully done, it seems to resemble the guardian we just defeated. But that isn't the only thing what happens. We also hear some rumbling and fall through the floor. Both of us seem to be okay though, but we entered deeper into the ruins with statues of weird dragon Pokemon all around us. There's also these weird, never seen forms of unknown that have never been seen before, flying around everywhere. All of this seemed very mysterious, so we started exploring our surroundings. First, I ended up finding a broken statue somewhere on the ground, so I picked it up and took it with me. Then I captured my very own form of unknown, who met back up with Leo, who had figured something out. He thinks we need to put the statue that we found on top of this pedestal here to open up the gate that's locked behind us. So that's exactly what we do, and guess what? The gate did end up opening. Inside, we found yet another puzzle for me to complete, and this one probably resembles the second guardian that we'll have to defeat in the future. Leo also recognizes it as some kind of dragon Pokemon, which is very weird because all the dragons were wiped out from Altera thousands of years ago, which means these ruins must be even older than that. Leo just wishes Gale was here to see all of this, which makes him emotional again, so we reassure him that Gale also wants to reunite with him as much as he does. But he doesn't believe me. He truly thinks Gale hates him and that he's just dragging him down, but in the middle of his self-pity, he ends up falling into yet another hole. So we go after him and check if everything's okay. Everything is super dark down here, so he throws down Ember to shed some light on our surroundings. Here we find yet another door with one of these weird symbols that brought us in here in the first place, only this time he can't figure out how to get it open. And so Leo proceeds to burst into tears because he believes he is useless and brings other people around him into dangerous situations. That's the same thing he told Gale, but he didn't take it too well, and so that turned into a big fight. Leo now realizes that he is indeed his best friend and never wanted to push him away in the first place, and now he feels all alone just like when he was little. Back then, an alter Pokemon set fire to his home, which killed his entire family, and Ember is now all he has left. So we tell him that my friend Aster is an orphan as well, which makes him feel a little better. After this, Ember's flame fades away and Leo shouts that he wants him to live, and in that moment the room fills with a blue shining light because his trusty partner Ember just transformed into a beautiful phoenix. This evolution opens the door and saves both of us, and when we enter the next room we see a huge tree that must be thousands of years old growing on top of a flux crystal. After seeing this sight and witnessing all of this, he finally gets it. He realizes he doesn't need to push anybody away because it's thanks to everyone that he was able to make it this far, and he's not about to give up on his dreams now. So just like a phoenix, he'll rise from the ashes and become a champion level trainer. And in order to prove that, he wants to battle with me in front of this majestic tree. So let's go all out and give him everything we've got. He starts off with his Cyanix and S. Houghton, and while we snipe one of the birds out of the sky easily, Cyanix uses his special flux move, Sunny Fire Burst, to set up the sun and also wipe my side of the field. So I send out Ariel and Fu, who use Brine and Dual Wing Bee to take down Ember. He also has this cute little chimera called Chemical, who was able to poison my flying dinosaur before it got taken down. We also use one more Siren Song on his little pony, which leaves him with just one Pokemon in Flagit. The toxic damage did rack up over the turns, so Fu goes down, I bring in JND and use Stone Axe to finish the battle. Leo realizes what an amazing trainer I really am and can see why Gale declared me his rival. And since we're both aiming to be champions, we are also rivals together. Our battle also shook the tree quite a bit, which made something fall down. Upon closer inspection, these turn out to be ancient Pokemon fossils. And there's two of them, so we both get to pick one. I didn't really know what I was going to get, so I decided to go with a branch fossil, which left Leo with the sap one. After this, we both managed to get out of the ruins safely, and somehow Gale and one of the archaeologists were already expecting our arrival. He starts shouting at us, but it's clearly not a shout of anger. He was just very worried about his two best friends. After explaining everything, they put the fight behind them and go back to journeying together. He thanks me for keeping this idiot alive, and then we say goodbye for now. I then get out of the ruins myself to reach one of the most ancient towns in this entire game, Drake Village. And this is also something I really like about this game. It seems like all of the big cities here get introduced with this entire cutscene of them showing the landscape, and this makes all the landmarks feel really important. Something else that was important was me meeting up with Terra and Aster in front of the Pokemon Center. Because we were just in the ruins, we didn't get a holo message that they got. This message was from the chairman of the Pokemon League, Aquila. He thanks us for our help at the West Flux Nexus, and the next step ship in Mission Excalibur is to retrieve the Topaz Flux core. He'd be here to help us out, but unfortunately, the people of this town really don't like him, and he's not even allowed to enter the ruins where the Guardian is being held. Apparently, they're still angry about something his family did over 50 years ago, and even after making them a generous offer, they still wouldn't budge and told him to get out of their faces because the History Society cannot be bought. Whatever his father did must have been really bad because him and his entire family have been banned from the ruins forever. But he knows we'll be able to find a way through and get into those ruins by getting the permission of one of the higher-ups. And we better work quickly because this entire region has been plagued by thunderstorms and attacking altar Pokemon for the last couple of weeks. And until we defeat that Guardian, it's not going to stop. So we need to head over to the local museum, which also functions as the History Society's headquarters, where we'll be able to find all the answers we're looking for. So me and Aster head to the museum as fast as possible, where he can hopefully find out why he can read Draconic language as well. We head inside and ask if we could meet the Guildmaster here, and he should be on the top floor. But I wanted to check out the rest of the museum first, which was a great idea because I ended up finding some really cool relics, like Draconic Pokemon that used to rule this region many years ago, but also a giant flying dinosaur skeleton that must have ruled the skies in the ancient ages. We also had the opportunity to revive our branch fossil into a Liline, who seems to be a fusion of the Flux Rock and tree we ended up finding in the ruins. A little further up, we also find the history of the rise of the Draconians. These wall paintings explain that they were a highly advanced civilization based on their mastery of flux energy. They even created legendary Pokemon with their sacred organs. But in the end, every single person wanted to take control of this, which created factions and wars among the Draconian people. All of this chaos and fighting awakened Altera's ancient guardian dragon from its slumber, who in its enraged state turned all the Pokemon of Altera against the civilization. In the end, they got overwhelmed and defeated, which caused the downfall of their entire species. This entire event is known as the Day of Red Sky, which means the disappearance of all the dragons in the region must be linked to this event as well. But Aster can't help but feel that something of this story is missing. But what is something we still have to uncover? No reason to break our heads over it right now though. Let's head upstairs to the HQ of the History Society. But when we arrive, we hear the unfortunate news that the Guildmaster is currently away to Dracopolis, which is also a problem for the people here because he's the only one that can read all of these murals, so Aster tells him that he can read them too. The people here don't trust Aster, but when he reads the carvings as Dragon's Blood Pact, their demeanor changes instantly and they start asking him to translate everything. It's also said that only those of the ancient Draconic bloodline could read those writings, so they're immediately curious as to who Aster's family might be. But unfortunately, he doesn't know himself because he's an orphan. Regardless of that, Aster is incredibly important because with his help, they might be able to figure the entire Draconic story out. But we're only here to get access to the ruins. So the current director in charge tells us that we will get access to the ruins once we help them with their work. But because I can't really do anything in this situation, I decide to leave so Aster can do his translating in peace. When we find ourselves outside again, I get a holo message from a mysterious person telling me to come to the ruins. He says that the Guildmaster will be waiting for me there, and that we just need to relay a special phrase to get access to the ruins, which states Draconis in Aeternum Vive. Before I did just that, I traded away my Hagoop for a different form of Hagoop with one of the townspeople. I also immediately evolved it into Hagrose, the poison electric type, a creature that also used to be in the very popular Pokemon Uranium. After this, we can freely enter the ruins after telling the phrase to the guard. But this was just the entrance. We had an entire mountain climb ahead of us, and on the way I captured a regional form of Tyro that turned out to be a fighting normal type. I also captured Sandra the Minicorn before reaching the end of the mountain, and who I met here was very surprising. It's the former champion Alistair who helped us out on countless occasions in the first episode, and he indeed is the Guildmaster of the society here. And on top of that, he's also of the Draconian bloodline, and he's called me here for a very special reason. For the last few months, he's been working on something of historic value. He intends to bring the dragons back to Altera, but to do that, he'll need the help of a strong trainer with an affinity for flux energy, and that trainer should be me. So after we agree to help him out, we enter the ruins together. Inside, we find runes that read,
O youth of Dragon's Blood, partake of the life of the land and enter into the Dragon's Blood Pact.
This serves as some kind of ritual that in the end will allow me to read draconian carvings as well. But that's not the only benefit it's going to give me, just wait and see. He then asks me what flux represents, and I say that flux is life. And while that may not be a bad answer, it is unfortunately wrong because the truth is written right here in the language of the Draconians. They even called it dragon's blood. You see, flux energy flows through this entire land like lifeblood, which means that Altera is literally alive. But this truth is unfortunately lost to us in the modern day. However, soon it won't be stuff of history anymore. So let's help him and partake in this dragon blood pact. First, we need to stand in the middle of the sigil and drink dragon's blood, and then somewhere a partner dragon Pokemon would answer back. So I go up to the middle, drink it up, and my entire mind starts going a bit crazy until some kind of connection is formed with a statue that turns into a baby dragon Pokemon. It says our minds are linked together and I can even control this thing from afar. So I lead it through corridors, solve statue puzzles, and eventually my very own linked Draxi shows up in the next room, where it becomes my partner Pokemon for life. But the ritual isn't over yet. We still have a few steps to complete, and this next one is going to cause our Draxi to evolve into one of 4 forms. We get to pick between the Tale of Friendship, Tale of the Trickster, Tale of the Hero, or Tale of the Storm. And because this lightning storm just wouldn't stop, I thought it would be fitting to go with that one. It's about a story where a man took shelter inside of a dragon's cave from a lightning storm, and this dragon was utterly afraid because it had never been outside of this cave and thought this creature from outside would come in to kill him. But the man showed the dragon that it's okay to try new things and took him outside of the cave, where he unfortunately got hit by the lightning. And in his last dying breath, he said that it was okay because now he finally knows what it's like to be brave. After this, my Draxi entered the middle of the sigil and evolved into the electric dragon Nordra. Now the ritual is nearly complete. The only thing left to do is for me and my new dragon to face Alistair in a battle. And I'm eager to test this new power out, so let's not waste any time and jump into it right away. But he isn't going to go easy on me this time, as he throws out Astronite and Geogryph. But he had one great weakness. Both of these were rock types, so I used one sparkling Ariel with Ariel, which knocked both of them out. Next up was Albashell and Cosmisha, and can I just say that this flying turtle looks super majestic. Its design just screams top notch. And not even a siren song combined with a 4x super effective rune power could take it down. He then uses his flux move Shining Bright Brains, and Nordra unfortunately goes down. So I bring out my little stump, who gets cut down immediately, but with 2 more sparkling Arias, the battle is over, so the ritual is now complete, and Alistair was right to believe in my capabilities. And our actions here today have catalyzed an awakening, because for the first time in 1,000 years, dragons from all over here will be searching for new masters. But this is only the beginning. Me and my dragon have more changes ahead of us. This is the end for now though, but before we part ways, Alistair has a word of caution. We get to share everything we learned today with our companions Aster and Terra, so they may seek to form pacts with dragons of their own. However, do we really truly know what Altair Corp is trying to achieve? Because they won't tell us anything behind the truth of Project Excalibur, and if we don't know yet, it's not his place to say. But we just need to know that there will come a time where we have to make a choice, one that may divide me and my friends. And when that time comes, I need to be sure to choose with conviction and to be able to deal with the consequences it brings. With those last words, Alistair leaves us, which leaves us confused but also determined to find more answers to our questions. But we know our next destination, the top of this mountain, where we'll meet the next Crystal Guardian. So I go on yet another long hike, capturing a little cute Glubble for my Pokemon collection, and evolving my stump into a slightly bigger stump. On the way, we also find a couple of Olympic athletes. These are the new evolutions of Tyroke, Hitmonbolt, Hitmonflip, and Hitmonride. And this might be one of the most clever split evolutions I've ever seen. And it motivates me to get my own Olympic medal by climbing this mountain as fast as possible until we run into our friends Aster and Terra at the top. They don't really understand how we got here before them, so we go ahead and tell them everything that happened. They're shocked to see that the former champion is indeed the leader of the History Society, and they do indeed want to try to get a dragon Pokemon of their own. But first, we need to enter the Northern Flux Nexus. Currently, the gates are shut, but there is a runestone in front of it that only those who have entered a Dragon's Blood Pact can enter, so I lay my hand on the stone, everything starts glowing, and the doors open up. When we enter, we see that there's electric crystals around everywhere, but there's no exit in sight, only 3 stone sigils. So the 3 of us step on them so that we can be judged, and it states that only one is worthy, and the other 2 await another trial to start the Dragonblood's Pact while I go and do the Trial of Thunder. This consists of 3 separate missions, and the first one we have to complete is the Trial of Connection, where I had to push electrified crystals over water to open up the path forward. And the further I got into this trial, the harder the puzzles became, with more crystals being added, which required bigger brain capacity, which I didn't have a lot of apparently, because I got stuck here for quite a bit. Eventually I did make it to the end, which brought me to an arena with Terra. She was really worried about me and Aster, and even had to do the same ritual we did. Now she has a dragon of her own named Istra, but this isn't just a reunion, it's also a trial, and the winner will be able to move on to the next section. So we get into battle position and clash it out. And it's no different than any other battles, with Ariel dominating the field, wiping out her Istra easily, while Fu uses flamethrower to burn up her wormy Terra. We also get to see the final evolution of her starter Pokemon Hydrotion, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty happy with what I picked. Don't get me wrong, it's a really cool looking Pokemon, but I just prefer my dinosaur. So I wiped her Hero Loon, Daikongas, and Hydrotion off the field with Drillpex and Siren Songs, which sent her back to the start of the ruins and allowed me to proceed further. After Terra wishes me luck in the next trial, we step through the door and enter the castle walls of Dracopolis. Here we can use lightning rods to bounce the electric crystals off of them and complete puzzles that are even harder than the ones from before. Once they were completed, gates would open up until we reached the next battle arena to face Aster and his new dragon fire type Westra. And this time I wasn't playing around, spamming Sparkling Area on my first turn and taking down not only my own Pokemon but also both of his. In the following turn, we did do some decent damage with Siren Song on his dragon, but he was also able to set up the sun and wipe my side of the field with his flux move. So I had to bring out my Bird and Nordra, who made quick work of both of his team members with Drillpex. The last Pokemon, Grimpaws, fell to a Drillpeck and Stone Axe as well, and just like that, Aster is defeated, and just like Terra, he gets sent back to the start. Well, we get to move on to the next section where we'll have to face the Thunder Nexus Guardian, who's been corrupted by the Alter Energy. But when we reach the top here, we see that there is indeed the same mural as in the museum, but the part that was missing before is now here. But all we can see is the ancient legendary dragon fighting something that has been taken out. So we leave it alone and head further, where we come face to face with the menacing legendary guardian, Osir River, Fury of the Storm. Our only objective here is to defeat it just like the last one. It took me a couple of tries to defeat, but at this point I know what it's going to do. It always starts with a devastating flux move, a magnetic pile driver that none of my Pokemon can survive. So I sacrifice my 2 weakest ones to it. Then I bring out JND and Ariel, who both use their flux moves too, which does insane damage to my opponent, but it also brings him into his enraged state. It then takes out JND with a Drain Punch and heals up some health, but my Siren Song brings it back down. On the next turn, I can make it crumble with an extreme speed Siren Song combo, which powers down the vessel so we can claim the Topaz Flux Core for ourselves. And just like last time, the Alter Pokemon and Thunderstorm disappear. We hike back down to meet up at the front entrance with Terra and Aster, who are delighted to see that our mission was yet another success. But we remember what Alistair said about making that choice and needing to know what Project Excalibur is about. And just when we were about to contact Altair, he already shows up in his helicopter, which is sort of suspicious because nobody told him this happened. He also talks to us like we're children, saying that we defeated the big scary guardian, which is a tone I don't really like. But since we still trust him on some level, I decide to hand over the Topaz. But Aster says that we do now deserve to know about this top secret mission, because we know that these flux cores were once used as weapons, making us curious just what Altair Altair Corp is planning to do with them. And while he gets that we want to know what we're actually doing here, he unfortunately can't spill the beans because his sister Andromeda is the entire brains behind this operation and would kill him if he did that. So if you want more answers, we're probably going to have to ask Andromeda. But he promises that Altair Corp isn't like one of those teams that's bent on world domination. I mean, his family already practically controls all of Altera, so everything they do is for the sake of protecting the region. And that's also the reason for Project Excalibur. And he promises that the three of us will get our answers eventually, just not now. This settles us down a little bit, but we are still skeptical. Plus, we also still have a lead challenge to get to, and our next destination is going to be Corvo City. And in order to get there, we need to free some bridges, which is why he gives all of us a new HM called Kongil. So without any further ado, let's make some ice bridges and follow the incoming road. That's where I grabbed my own fix in it and ran into my good friend Leo. And it seems like we arrived just at the right time because his Pokemon Cyanix just got stolen. So we follow the route until we find the culprit. They seem to be part of the Corvus Gang, a group that loves to steal Pokemon and sell them on the black market. So let's try to stop them before we lose Ember forever. And to do that, we ended up having to beat Cyanix in the battle because he used it against us. But he was just keeping me busy because a couple of seconds later, his mates show up and start surrounding me. They want to steal my Pokemon as well, and just when they're about to, Mercy shows up with Ampy, who shocks all of them unconscious and saves the day. She's been trying to get all of these Corvus Gang members out of the city, but that's not going to be possible without taking down their boss. But first things first, let's tie these criminals up and get Amber back and hand it over to Theo, who's over the moon. Gale also joined the party and blames Theo for getting into trouble yet again. But they managed to laugh it off because in the end, they're just here to take on the League Challenge. Mercy might take it on herself, but she has a lot of business to take care of first. And if we need any help, we just need to give her a call because these streets is where she grew up on. So let's head into Corvo City and see what it looks like for ourselves. It definitely gives me shady vibes with the clock tower in the middle and all the dark tones that are covering the city. It also has a very large harbor because this is where a lot of import and export is being done across the entire world. So all in all, this is a great looking city. Our first stop is going to be the harbor itself because that's where the League building is located. So me, Terra, and Aster meet up just in front of there, pumped and ready to go. But we need to watch out for the Corvus Gang as well because they could be lurking anywhere. When we glance over to the arena, we see Xander and Altair. If you don't remember, they were at the power plant incident and are both really mean people that don't really respect anybody else. And as it happens to be, they are of course father and son. So we get a bit closer to see what they're talking about, and it turns out Xander here wants to become Pokemon champion himself, but Altair isn't having any of it because his son is the only heir to their family corporation, so he doesn't want him to waste his time to try and become a silly Pokemon trainer. But Xander isn't having any of it, and he tells his dad to shut up and not to underestimate him. But his father then brings up the point that he couldn't even beat a trainer like me with the Pokemon that his father gave to him. Xander then storms off into the arena with anger on his mind, and we have a little chat with Altair after. He knows that we have completed our tasks for Project Excalibur very well, but unfortunately our services will no longer be required by him, because as we speak, his employees are securing the Lapis Flux core from the Eastern Flux. And unlike his brother and sister, he has no need to rely on the aid of children. But we tell him to hold on because Aquila was supposed to tell us everything about Project Excalibur, but Altair says that this is why they don't work with children, and if we need any extra compensation, that can be arranged, and when the time comes to unveil Project Excalibur to the public, we shall learn everything there is to know about it. And if we don't obey these rules, our journey could end as a Pokemon trainer because they control the entire league system. So now we're going from heroes to being blackmailed by the same guys that put us in this position in the first place. A very scummy thing to do, but our hands are tied. Once Altair's gone, we tell each other how much this sucks, but there is one good point. Now we can fully focus on the league challenge without any other distractions. So let's head inside and apply. While we're at the front desk to finalize our participation, we also hear of a public announcement by the Corvus Gang.
They say that this arena belongs to them, and when the clock tolls, the Raven shall strike, and all of our Pokemon will belong to them.
However, the league employees tell us that we have nothing to worry about. They have the entire arena under lockdown and they should not be able to enter at any any point. So with caution, we do still enter the tournament. Just like last time, we have to collect 6 victory stars from other participants so that we can get into the final and eventually beat the league master around here. So without any further ado, let's squash some trainers. First, I steamroll Leo and his team, and then I move on to a firefighter who got the beat stick laid down on him as well. But as our second match is won, we hear an emergency broadcast coming from the speakers telling us to come to the main arena. Here, me and all of the other participants gather, and the announcer says that the Corvus gang is here to steal their Pokemon and then transforms into one of their members as mist fills up the room. The entire crowd is also filled with some of their grunts, and the moment we breathe in this mist, all of our heads start to become very light and all of us fall to the ground unconscious. When we wake up, me and my friends are the only ones left together with the Corvus gang. But it's already too late. Each and every one of us has had our Pokemon stolen, so we're defenseless against them. From behind us, we hear the shouts of Altair as he tells the criminal scum to give our Pokemon back and get out of here. But that intimidation doesn't work because they have kidnapped his son, Xander, and relay a message from their boss to him, saying that his precious son is safe for now. And to keep it that way, Altair has to hand over to what is rightfully the boss's property, the Great Glacial Dam. And if he does that, his son will be returned to him safe and sound. However, our Pokemon are not part of this deal and will be sold on the black market no matter what. Altair doesn't want to go through with this, but their commander tells him to think about this because she wants this to be settled when the clock tower strikes 12. And we better not try to get our stolen Pokemon back because they run this city, and with that, they flee the scene with a smoke bomb. The tournament then gets cancelled until Xander returns, and from here on out, the entire building is under investigation by the police. Back outside, I have a conversation with my friends about the situation, and they don't really understand how something like this can happen. And it's not like we can really fight back either because our strongest Pokemon are gone and the ones we still have in the box are pretty weak. But there must be a way to save Xander and get our Pokemon back. But how? Because according to Aster, the entire league staff was in on this scandal because the smoke from the entire arena apparently came out of our league challenger emblems. It seems like this trap was set up from the beginning, so we can't trust anyone. The police then calls us in for questioning and takes away my 2 buds, while I get called over from somewhere else. And once we go over there, we see Mercy, who might have a solution to our entire situation. But she can only help us from the shadows, so we follow her down into the sewers to find her hideout. She explains that there is no safer place in the city from the Corvus gang because they don't know this exists. Unfortunately, they control everything else. The police, the Pokemon League, the criminal underworld. There's no escaping them. Their boss is named Don Corvion, and until now, he's not attempted a heist like this. So there must be a very good reason for it. And she thinks she's figured it out. As we speak, the stolen Pokemon are being smuggled through the steam vents. But they also never keep their stolen goods all in one place, so they'll have them divided. Which is pretty smart. It keeps them from getting caught all at once. But it also means that they'll be spread thin, and that's going to be our chance to catch all of them off guard and get the Pokemon back one by one. Their hideout is also down here underneath the clock tower, but we're not going to be able to take them down with just her Pokemon team. So once we get our friends' Pokemon back one by one, we'll be able to assemble our own team with all of their best battlers. But for now, we need something to protect us, so MP will be coming with me. So without any further ado, let's take this little birdie further into the sewers and get all of our Pokemon back. So we move out, and if you want to try to sneak past the guards without alarming them, we just need to go behind them and let Ampy shock them unconscious, which is a very cool sneaky feature that allowed us to get Leo's Cyanics back from the first guard we got. So now we got 2 team members already, only a couple more to go. The further we head in, the more guards we see, and the harder it gets to sneak past them. And if Ampy does end up getting spotted, you have to jump out to battle them. Luckily, that only happened once in this entire section for me, so it ended up being pretty easy to re-obtain Gale's Zorotsune, Terra's Hero Loon, and Aster's Villicard. Now that we have our friend's main Pokemon back, we decide to head further into the sewers. That's where we end up running into Xander's Meowth, which seems to have been left behind because it's not valuable enough. So we take it with us as well in case we find him. And that officially brings us up to into a team of 6, assembling all the Avengers in the form of all our friends' strongest Pokemons. A little further up, we find the entrance to the Corvus hideout, but for whatever reason, there's no guards around, which makes us think this might be a trap. But trap or not, we don't really have a choice. This is our only way of moving forward. So after a couple of really deep breaths, the door opens up and we enter the next section. Here we find their sleeping quarters and the 3 rules of the Thieves' Code. Those are as follows: handle goods with care, always act with certainty, and thieves have their honor. We also dig around the place to find a special password that opens up the next door, and that password turned out to be Family Matters. Ah yes, the real Italian mafia quotes are coming up. Unfortunately, inside of this next room, we were being waited on by Giallo. They seem to know Mercy quite well, even calling her by a nickname, Merce, for stating that this isn't a way to greet your big sister after so long. She even rolled out the big carpet for this family reunion, but Mercy tells her to shut up because she's not her sister anymore, and demands that she tells us where Don Corleone is. But the Corvus gang is under new management, and if we're looking for their new boss, he's just passed her up these stairs. So to make sure this all flows smoothly, the 2 sisters fight while I am able to sneak up to the next room to face the boss. Where in a shocking plot twist, we stand in front of the little kid that was supposed to be kidnapped, Xander. He was in on this deal the whole time. He's now the leader of the Corvus gang, and he's going to show everyone what he's capable of, but not with his own Pokemon, no, with the ones he stole from me. Because he knew how strong me and my team were, and there was just no way he and his weakling Pokemon could ever become that strong. So he devised a plan to steal my Pokemon and use them for his own gain. He's so jealous that everybody talks about me as the new star of Altera, and he just wants that same spotlight I'm getting for himself. And he's going to start by humiliating me with my own team. But little did he know that the bond with my friends as Pokemon is just as strong. So let's show him that it's not the Pokemon that make the trainer. He leads off with my strongest member, Ariel, as well as Nordra. And I decide to use Terra's Hero Loon and Leo's Psyonix. And with a Sunny Chop, the sun starts shining bright, and with another Heat Wave and Full Moon Assault, Nordra and Furby fall to the ground. Another good thing is that my Pokemon just refuse to listen to Xander because they're loyal to me, making this fight even more in my favor. Eventually, he brings out Ariel and J&D, and with a Full Moon Assault, the latter gets taken down. He's also able to hit a sparkling area through all of the ignores, which brings both of our Pokemon down to about half health. He then proceeds to bring out my own starter, who's able to hit a Rock Slide, which turns Cyanic back into ashes. So I have to bring out Ampy and use the Flux move Electric Shock to do decent damage on both Pokemon, but with yet another sparkling area being hit, all 3 members end up going down, leaving him with only Ariel. So I bring out Meowth and Vulicard, and with one more trash talk, the battle was fully played out, and we come out as victor yet again. Xander doesn't understand how he can't beat me with my own Pokemon and why they won't just listen to him, and I tell him that you need your Pokemon's trust in order to win. He doesn't understand it and starts throwing a temper tantrum, and in the middle of it, we hear a voice coming from behind us saying,
"Are you done?"
It's Giallo and Mercy who say that playtime is over and to hand over the rest of the Pokemon now, because Mercy ended up being defeated. And just when she's about to put us to sleep with the same gas, but in that moment, Ampy comes out of its Pokeball trying to save us, but it just gets trash talked down by Giallo, saying that it's useless and doesn't know when to give up, just like its little sister. This gives the little birdie the courage to evolve into Quetzalcoatlus, which is strong enough to take on any opponent. And so it immediately knocks out our hostage holder. But things don't end here, as the real boss of the team comes walking in while clapping his hands. It's Don Corleone, and after witnessing his presence, even Giallo wakes up instantly to apologize for her failure. He says it doesn't matter, and he asks her to leave the room because we have business to discuss. The entire plan was indeed hatched by Xander to try and take down his biggest rival with his own Pokemon. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out in the end. And so he'll definitely need some extra experience if he wishes to become the Don's successor. But why would he even like a little kid like him? Well, that's easy. It's because he's his little nephew. That's right, Xander's father, Antares, is actually his brother. brother. Well, technically half-brother. The Altairs rule Altera in the light, and Don Corleone here commands the underworld in the shadows. He even has an agreement with all of his siblings that they can rule the rest of Altera while he is the main boss of Corvo City, its industry and people. But his family seems to have forgotten about this agreement, as they're trying to crush Corvo City's industry by withholding control over the Great Glacial Dam. So that's why they hatched this little plan to remind him of this agreement. So once he controls the dam, Corvo City's industry will rise once more, so they'll become the true manufacturing heart of the country, and a place where orphaned kids don't have to grow up hungry and shivering anymore. But Mercy tells him to shut up because she was once an orphan, and it really seems like he's just using these words to get to her. But he says that the password Family Matters got picked by her big sister Giallo, and he knows all about their little backstory. They used to be a pair of orphans on the streets, so close that they would call each other sisters. But this unbreakable bond ended up being shattered because she became a criminal due to the Dawn, and that's something Mercy just could not accept. She thinks they're just low-life criminals, but Dawn insinuates the opposite. They are thieves with a strict code. Remember the rules. Number 1, handle goods with care. All the stolen Pokemon don't have a scratch on them and were handled with care. They're currently headed to the black market, where they will be sold off and never seen again unless he gives the order to return them, which can happen in an instant. Rule number 2, always act with certainty. Only make a play you are sure to win. He's already received a hollow message from Antares Altair stating that he'll hand over the Glacial Dam if he gives his son back, which means the battle's already over, and that leaves just one more thing: our silence. We must never speak of what happened here today, and then everything will go back to normal. And if we do ever end up speaking out of turn, we best believe that the Corvus gang will be on our tails in seconds. So the only thing we can do here is agree to his terms, because we have indeed lost. And that brings us to rule number 3. Thieves have their honor. He always keeps his word. So all that's still required is for Xander to give back my Pokemon, but he refuses at first, until his trusty Meowth comes out of my Pokeball and goes up to hug him. Xander can't believe that a Pokemon like this that he discarded would still love him after all that it's been through. But this is the first step to him building a strong bond with his own Pokemon. And once we got our Pokemon back, a couple of days went by and everything went back to normal. The League Arena reopened and we all reunited with our friends to take on the challenge yet again. And this time we get to re-challenge all of our friends yet again in the same tournament, where we ended up getting a record of 4-1, beating Xander, Gale, Terra, and Aster, but losing to the friend that has helped us out the most in this chapter, Mercy. She and her Quizwatlas had buffed up so much and really deserved the win, but despite this, we still moved on to the final, where I faced the league boss, Don Corleone himself, who acts like we've never met before. And while we might play along with this little game, we're not going to let him win this battle. It's time to bring down the Dawn. He leads with Werewolf and Garblegoyle, and we're in luck because Ariel and Nordra combined their efforts with Moonblast and Electrify Thunderstrike to take down Werewolf and do decent damage on Garblegoyle. Meowth's evolution perchance then hits the field, and while it might be able to survive a double hit combo, Garblegoyle couldn't say the same. So in the next turn, he brings out Crunch, the biting monster, and once we hit a Moonblast and Room Power combo yet again, the Gold Snatcher cat is down. But our dragon can't survive a Jawlock, so I send out Nidoriguez against his final Pokemon, Ravero. But one more Moonblast was all we needed to send this Tuxedo Bird back into its ball, leaving behind only Crunch. So we used the power of the moon one last time to blast him out of here, and that's how I won my second ever league tournament. Once I earned my league emblem in the following days, all of my friends did the same. And when we stepped foot outside of the arena, we saw the Altairs bickering in front of it. They're angry for giving up the Glacial Dam before they could obtain the Lapis Flux Core. Antares tries to defend himself by saying that his siblings don't have any children, so they don't know what it's like to have one of them being kidnapped. But they then make a very good point. The Dawn is Xander's uncle. He would never actually have hurt him. So they probably could have finished the entire operation at the glacial dam before handing it over, but Antares just wasn't thinking straight. So now they would like us, their most precious agents, back on the team. Terra answers by saying that Antares didn't want us on the team anymore, but apparently he made that decision without consulting the rest of them. Otherwise, the other two would have never approved it. But we're not just going to join their cause again nilly-willy, we need to know what Project Excalibur is about first. And they agree that we've been held in the dark for way too long and deserve to know the truth. But just when they're about to show us the true form of Project Excalibur, they get a call. There's been an attack at the glacial dam. Someone forced their way past the guards and into the restricted area around the eastern flux nexus. And in doing so, they disturbed the last guardian. It's just like in the last two cases, sent out a huge wave of altar Pokemon as well as a snowstorm that's enveloping the entire area. The Altairirs want to flee the scene to leave all of their employees to clean up, but Xander comes rushing out of the arena and convinces them to stay and fight. That will give us a larger chance of winning this battle. So now there's only one more thing to do: drive away all of the altar Pokemon and reach the legendary Guardian to defeat it and claim its Flux score, which would in theory bring everything back to normal. So we agreed to join them in this fight because we also want to protect our own region, and maybe after we can finally find out what Project Excalibur is all about. First, I buffed up my team with my own Villa card, and then we teamed up with the Dawn and Team Corvus to chase away a ton of altar Pokemon out of the city. When we finally got to the next round, we see that all of our companions were fighting altar Pokemon left, right, and center, and we'd of course follow in their footsteps, teaming up with Terra to make our way to the others who hand us the Surf HM so we can move further along the route towards the Great Dam. On the water, we helped Terra defeat a drift brig, and once we reached the other side, me and Terra made our way through tons of ice puzzles. That was until we got ambushed by a horde of altar Pokemon, and just as we started to think that it was over, Leo and Gale jumped in to save the day. All of us really do have each other's backs out here, and it's lovely to see all of our friend groups working together. A little further up, the four of us teamed up yet again to defeat even more waves of altar Pokemon, but Terra's Hiroloon got caught off guard, which caused her to jump into battle to defeat the Pokemon with her bare fists. That might not have been the best idea because now she's bleeding and heavily injured. So Gale and Leo are going to go back with her to town so she can get treated, while me and Aster are going to keep moving through this frosty hell. Because Mercy is out there all by herself and we need to go and give her some backup. Eventually we end up running into her, and she does seem to be holding her own quite well against the altar Pokemon with Ampy by her side, but with hordes and hordes that keep on coming, it does seem like they're being tired out. So we jump in with Aster to save her, and she thanks us for our efforts, but is going to stay behind to try and keep away any Pokemon from coming behind us while we head over to the dam. So we move further and further until we eventually reach it, but the moment we start running across it, a thick fog envelops us, and we can't see anything anymore. Until a flash of light clears it all, and right there in front of us is Alistair. You see, he's the one responsible for this attack. He released all these altar Pokemon and put the town in danger. So Aster screams,
But why did you do this?
to which Alistair answers,
You don't understand. I expected better from you too. Especially from you, Aster. My own flesh and blood.
Aster is shocked because he had no idea they were even related. But how could he remember? Because when the altar Pokemon destroyed their home, Alistair ended up escaping with him on his back. He was just a baby back then, and Alistair was just a child, so he couldn't look after him. That's why he left him in Sparrow Town on that doctor's doorstep. It's because he just wanted his brother to be safe. But more importantly, their bloodline, because they are direct descendants from the Draconic family. And yet when the dragons chose the one to inherit their blessing, they didn't choose Aster. They instead chose me. You see, for thousands of years, the majestic dragon has been in a deep slumber underneath Altera, and only the Heritor of Dragons may awaken it, and that potential dwells inside of me. We alone have the potential to shape Altera's future, but only if we can prove ourselves worthy, by defeating the last Nix's Guardian and claiming the organ. But the weird thing about all this is that Alistair can control this vessel, and uses it to make an ice wall to block off Aster. Aster. So now while we're separated, we have to face this challenge alone. And just like the prophecy intended, Horlung, Breath of the Blizzard, got defeated by a single bracing fire burst from our starter Pokemon Fu. And when the vessel falls to the ground, we claim the organ, which means we will have to make that difficult choice he was talking about earlier. But just when we're about to do so, Aster breaks through the wall and demands answers from Alistair why he did all this. And that's when we get the full explanation. Altera is dying. Flux is its lifeblood, and that life is being drained away by the Altair Corporation. It feeds the relentless demands of humans seeking growth, profit, and power. It's really no coincidence that the Alter Pokemon have become more restless and vicious. They're just answering the call of their ancient master, Fluxardian. He knows that it will soon wake up and pass its judgment onto humanity, just as it did 1,000 years ago. But he understands our point as well. Altair Corp sponsored him too. They supported him into becoming the champion. In return, he helped them by using his ability to read the Draconian language to help them uncover buried secrets, all of which led to the creation of Project Excalibur. And so he asks us if we finally know what Project Excalibur truly is. And even though they wanted to tell us, we still don't know. So he finally spills the beans, saying that it's a weapon, but not just any weapon. It's precisely made to slay the ancient dragon. And while killing Fluxardian would stop the alteration at its source, it could eventually lead to even more catastrophic things in the region, and that's something that Alistair could not support. So he stepped down from the project and caused this entire scene so that Altair Corp could never get their hands on the last Flux core. And his goal is simple now. He just needs to wake up the ancient dragon before they can finish Project Excalibur. This could wipe out everything and unleash another horde of Alter Pokemon on the region, but it could also be the solution to all of our problems. So now the choice is ours. Do we side with the Altairs and finish Project Excalibur, which could save the region, but this might have bigger consequences in the end? Or do we turn our back on all of our friends and leave behind a project to help Alistair awake the ancient dragon? This is a very hard choice because no matter what, you don't know what the outcome is. But killing a legendary Pokemon with a giant weapon just isn't something I'm willing to support. So I decided to turn my back on the Altair Corporation and help Alistair instead. Alistair thinks we chose well, but by joining him, we did just make an enemy of Altair Corp and maybe even our closest friends. And while Aster understands why I made this choice, he just can't support it, because it doesn't matter if Alistair is family, he'll never join someone who hurts innocent people. In that moment, the glacial dam collapses, and the next thing we remember is waking up in a bed with Terra next to us. She says that we got saved by some kind of really fast bird Pokemon, which means Alistair must have jumped in just at the right time to save us. Aster is also okay and went on a walk. Everybody also found out that Alistair was behind the attack on the glacial dam, so Altair Corp put a bounty out on his head. So now the entire region is on high alert and hates him. We try to explain to Terra that he's just trying to stop Project Excalibur, but she doesn't care. Because of him, an Alter Pokemon took a chunk out of her arm and she can't forgive him for that. So I better stay quiet of my choice for supporting him against her for now. Instead, I go out to look for Aster because we have a lot to talk about. After a quick hike, we find him at the top of a mountain where we talk about our choices, and he understands. He wants answers too. But Altair's actions hurt people. He even hurt Terra, and he never told him that they were family. So that's why he's not going to take a back seat anymore. Whatever Altair Corp or Alistair is trying to do, no matter what it is, he'll stand up for what's right, even if that means he'll have to oppose me. A part of him really hopes that we made the right choice. But if I'm wrong, if that path that I chose puts more innocent people in danger, he knows what he has to do, even though we've been friends all our lives. He'll stand against me with all of his might, but for now, what happened on top of Glacial Dam will be kept between us. It might also be a while before we see each other again because he needs some time alone. But when we do meet each other again, it might not be as friends, and when that time comes, he hopes we'll be ready. And that is the current end of the Pokemon Flux Episode 2 demo. This story is really shaping up to becoming one of the best ones I have ever played, and I personally can't wait for the release of episode 3, but that might be years away. But that's fine with me because true masterpieces like this only come around every so often and need as much time in the oven as possible. I'm giving the current trajectory of Pokemon Flux a 10 out of 10 right now, so let's hope that continues in its final stage. For now though, I'm going to end off this video by thanking my membership and Patreon supporters for making all of this possible. And if you'd like to join up as well, the link is in the description as always. I've been Zwiggo, and I'll see you all in the next one.